Up until now, ambient audio has always been an afterthought. For my travel clips, I'm often muting it and putting music over the footage anyway, and a lot of the time, the original audio isn't particularly usable in the first place, whether that's excessive wind noise or voices in the background that are just a bit too distracting. But I've had commenters in the past say they actually preferred my clips without music because they felt more immersive. And while music or no music obviously depends on the kind of video you're making, I'm also a big fan of those ambient and immersion focused videos where there's nothing between you and the place. So I decided I wanted to start taking ambient audio a bit more seriously. And before I knew it, I was deep down the field recording rabbit hole, which is basically the art of recording sounds out in the real world rather than in a studio setting. Now, after reading online discussions and watching some YouTube videos about it, it turns out that field recording is actually more involved and complicated than recording the video itself. Suddenly you're thinking about stereo configurations, wind protection, handling noise, adjusting the gain, and a whole lot more. And I quickly got the feeling that this would be overkill for casual vlogging and everyday video. But at the same time, I was really hooked on the idea of at least trying it out for fun and finding out just how different things could sound. So I bought this, the Zoom M4 MicTrak. Now this thing had a pretty rough launch, it's plastic, it looks like a toy, and some early units had an RF interference problem due to an assembly flaw. Because of all that, the initial reception was pretty lukewarm, which eventually led to significant price drops. So these days it's considered an incredible bargain. You're getting high quality components for an entry-level price, plus a built-in timecode generator that makes it particularly useful for video. And earlier this week I took the M4 outside to test it against the built-in mics on my cameras to find out whether a dedicated recorder can actually transform your ambient audio. So let's put some headphones on and compare the recordings. So I don't know about you, but to my ears, the difference was quite noticeable, and there were three things in particular that stood out. The first was the low frequency extension. Listen to these camera recordings first. And then compare it to the Zoom M4. If you're listening on headphones or good speakers, there's this deep low-end rumble that is almost completely absent on the other cameras. The second was the sense of openness and distance. In this walking clip, the bike in the background felt like it was a bit closer to me than it actually was on the Lunar Ultra's audio, and things just sounded a bit compressed. On the M4, everything sounds a bit more 3D, you get a clearer sense of where the bike is and how far away it is, and it just feels more spacious and convincing. And the third obvious difference was just how much lower the noise floor is. With the Osmo Pocket 4, if I boost the recording, it floods the mix with an audible hiss, whereas on the Zoom M4 you can really crank up these quieter recordings without tons of noise creeping in. Now keep in mind, this was all just using the built-in capsules on this Zoom M4, whereas more serious field recorders might be hooking up external microphones to its XLR TRS combo inputs for even better quality and stereo separation. And while I didn't do any post-processing beyond adjusting the volume for this video, the M4 records uncompressed 32-bit float audio, whereas built-in camera mics typically record processed, compressed audio, which gives the M4 far more headroom during recording and much more latitude to work with in post. So yes, the dedicated recorder clearly sounded better, but after actually using one, there are 3 big reasons why I still don't think this setup makes much sense for most video creators. If you've made it this far on your TV or laptop speakers, you might be scratching your head and wondering whether I've just been making these differences up. Because I've also compared the audio recordings on my TV and phone speakers, and some of the key differences like low frequency response and sense of openness almost completely disappeared. So it can feel like a lot of extra effort for something that a bunch of your audience may not even notice or appreciate. And that extra effort is significant. Not only do you have to buy a dedicated recorder, but you also have to carry and operate it alongside your camera. And in many ways, operating a dedicated recorder is just as much work as operating a second camera. Because the microphones are so sensitive and pick up a lot of handling noise, you have to either handle it really carefully or mount it on a tripod or separate grip to reduce the thumping sounds that come with finger taps and grip adjustments. And then in post, you have to transfer the audio from its micro SD card and sync it up to your video, be it manually, waveform syncing in your editor, or with timecode. So in terms of workflow, it can almost feel like you're dealing with 2 cameras at the same time. The final issue is that while ambient audio can add a lot to a video, there's a good chance it won't actually be central to your content. As I said in the beginning, I'm often using music over my footage or just blending some ambient audio beneath it. And if I'm doing a voiceover, then I'll either mute the original audio completely or substantially reduce its volume. In these cases, there's simply not much benefit in jumping through all the extra hoops just to capture premium background audio. So given all that, I think using a separate handheld field recorder only really makes sense for a fairly small niche of video creators. All the extra work can absolutely pay off if sound itself is a major part of the experience, like for immersive walking videos, nature recordings, ASMR style content, or more serious filmmaking projects where sound is a crucial part of the final result. So while I'm not going to start carrying this thing around everywhere I go, I'm already planning to head out of the city and make an ambient focused nature video in the coming weeks, just as a fun side project. And beyond using it for occasional field recording outdoors, I do think there is some value in having a dedicated recorder around, and I might even use it for some of my indoor recordings. But I'm very curious, so let me know in the comments how much of a difference you could actually hear between the audio samples in this video on your device, and whether you think a dedicated recorder is worth the extra effort.